Alright, welcome back to another Terrible at Technology, and we're going to talk about motherboards today, so stay tuned. Alright, welcome back. So we're going to talk about motherboards. This is probably the one area you can just spend and not do yourself any advantage. But understanding a motherboard is important. So let's go into my presentation. We're going to transition the screen and go into the PowerPoint. Alright, Motherboards 101, Understanding Motherboards. Now I'll tell you something. Yesterday when I made this up, I did this and I suffered a stroke, and it took me by ambulance to the hospital, which was 40 minutes away. I was up at a lake, and obviously I've gotten past the stroke. So, but I finished this, so that's all. So let's go into understanding motherboards, because these can be pretty intimidating. A motherboard's the heart of your system. Your CPU is the brain. The motherboard's the heart. Everything is connected to the motherboard. Easy to overspend on it? Very easy. CPU choice, AMD or Intel, will determine what category of motherboard or MOBO you dive into. So which generation of CPU you choose, which is the advancement of the CPU, will narrow down the selection. Don't let it intimidate you. Look at that picture. I know. It is crazy looking, isn't it? It just is. So many little things on it. So it has sections. We're going to go over each one of these sections. And so when you narrow your focus onto the motherboard, it's just a lot easier for you to not get intimidated by it. So there are the section where the CPU goes, the memory goes. SSD, or solid state digital device, which is your hard drive. Power, input output, interface, the connectors, and then of course PCIe slots. So let's start with the CPU. So you buy that chip, you finally determine whether AMD, Intel, and what chip is going to be good for you. That's where it goes. And you know what? Putting a chip in is the easiest thing on a motherboard. So don't let it intimidate you. Attaching the brain to the heart is the easiest part. So that's where it goes. Guess where the memory goes? There are 2 or 4 slots. I recommend getting 4 slots so you can expand it later if indeed you want to. But again, very easy to put the chips in. All the connections have keys to them. So there's only one way to put these things in. So you snap it in there and you're good to go. That's your memory area. M.2 SSD. This is what you really want to have. You don't want a hard drive. You don't want SSD SATA, which we'll talk about later. But this is your hard drive. These are your fastest hard drives, and they cost the same as a 2.5-inch SSD. So that's where they go. And they just plug in too. And there's only one way for them to plug in. So again, do not let this intimidate you. So we've got the CPU, the memory, and the hard drive so far. It's pretty easy, huh? Alright, so, and then of course the motherboard needs power. So you see that little row of little round things up there? Okay, those are power capacitors. And then you've got the heat sinks above it. You really want heat sinks. Some really cheap boards don't have it. So you want to have those heat sinks on it. So, but that's where the motherboard distributes power. So it's kind of cool, huh? Pretty easy. And it's kind of groovy looking. This is your input-output interface panel. So pretty self-explanatory. You want to make sure you got enough your USB connections. This one also has a Type C, which is really nice. I happen to like, and I have it hooked up to my optical cable into a sound system. So I really wanted one with the optical. And then you notice two gold ones. So that's your Wi-Fi. And you want to get Wi-Fi 6. So you can get it with or without those connections. But really, really very simple understanding on the input-output. So, and then all the little connectors on the perimeter. I know. So surrounding 2 or 3 sides of the board, there are these little connections, and that kind of intimidates people. But they really don't have to. So look above my head here. You see the one front USB 3.2 Gen 2. That's a USB-C. So if indeed your case has a USB-C connection, you want to make sure your motherboard's got it. Not all motherboards have that. And then you've got all these different USB connections down at the bottom. Your front panel, which is the buttons on your case, is in the lower right there. So your instruction manual will have all this on it. I had it open when I built mine, so watch that video and make sure that you, again, each one of the little things are keyed. So really look at the inner, the connection, and look at the pins, and you'll know where it goes. Again, do not let it intimidate you. This really is very simple. It really is. I mean, I was shocked when I built my computer what this has. Now, notice this particular board's got 4 SATA ports, probably plenty for anybody. I mean, on mine, I'm using 1. Okay? I've got 6. There's a half a dozen in here in that same area. I'm using 1 because I'm using M.2 slots. So I don't need to use, I'm not putting 4, SATA things in it. So it's just very, very simple. I'm using 1 SATA port for my hub for my RGB. So sometimes you use SATA for something beyond the hard drives. So very simple. Do not let this intimidate you. I watched lots of videos. I let it intimidate me. I made sure I bought the right one, and that's what I'm hoping by you looking at this little video will help you. Alright, so PCIE slots. So these are the long, thin slots. The top one is reinforced. Notice it's different. Sort of like that, Sesame Street. Which one is different? That one's different because it's reinforced. It's really strong. And that's where your GPU or your graphics card goes. You'll find some little ones, like the one below it, and then longer ones below that. These are for other cards that you may want to put in. You can put PCIe slots, cards, and use them for lots of different things. That's what's so fun about it. You can use it for a Wi-Fi card, which I happen to do in this computer, because it ended up being cheaper. And then you can also use it for, I do have a PCIe slot card down here for another M.2. You can add M.2s, and just bypass, SATA altogether. So it's amazing. This board holds 3 M.2s, so you could put, 12 terabytes right on the board. Storage space. I mean, crazy. I know. I like it. It's a nice board. All right. So how to choose and not spend a lot. All right. You basically learned the areas of a motherboard. Make sure that the power capacitors have heat sinks. Remember that? Those round things up above? Make sure it's got good heat sinks on it. Make sure you get 4 memory slots, so this way you can add memory later. Make sure you have at least 2 M.2 slots for your storage space. Make sure one's generation 4. Nowadays you can get generation 5. So, but Gen 4 is very, 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 very fast. is really fast. Gen 3 is really fast too, but Gen 4, make sure it's got one. And you don't have to have them all Gen 4s, but there are boards out there with all Gen 4s and Gen 5s. Very expensive, but you don't need it. You don't. Wi-Fi can be added like I did on a PCIe slot, but if it's cheaper, and it's about a $30 card, but if it's cheaper to buy the board with all the things you need for, with the Wi-Fi in it, get it built into it. Wi-Fi 6E, that's what you want. You want Wi-Fi 6E. You can get almost direct cable, Ethernet connection speed through Wi-Fi. It's the fastest. It's really, 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 really fast. So, and make sure if your case that you choose has USB-C on it, then make sure that the panel, that the board has a USB-C connection. So make sure it's got it. Not all of them do. So really just stay within this realm. How much would you spend for an Intel board or an AMD full board? 150 bucks. All right. Now, if you get the latest generation of CPUs, then you'll probably be about $200 to $250. But to be honest, they're out there in good packages. Sometimes you can bundle it. Find bundles like on Newegg or Amazon or something like that with some discounts. So check out bundling. I think that's it. Yep, that's it. So let's go back and make me big. All right, there I am. I'm big again. All right, so, but yeah, go back to the motherboard. I do suffer a lot of strokes, so yesterday was just another one. So, this is understanding a motherboard. When you see it, narrow down your focus on it, just see little pieces of it. It's really not that hard to understand a motherboard. It just isn't. As for brands of motherboards, they're almost all of them are good. Again, you want to make sure it's got a good heat sinks over the power capacitors. But ASRock, AMD, MSI, everybody, Gigabyte. There's so many brands out there that make very good motherboards. And this is a Asus that I've got, a tough gaming one, and it's a very good one. So that you could get a motherboard from many, many companies and still have a solid heart onto your system. So our next video that we're going to go into, because we've covered CPU coolers, and now the motherboard. All right, so next we're going to go into either probably GPUs will be our graphics cards, which is, there's so many SKUs out on the market right now. So, and then we'll go into memory, and then we'll go into cases and power supplies. And so those are the other elements of our technology to build a computer. So I hope you enjoyed this one, and we will see you guys in our next video.